So aloha, everybody. My name is Vincent Mina. I'm the president of Hawaii Farmers Union United and its foundation. For those of you who don't know, we are a state chapter of the National Farmers Union. We have 13 chapters across the islands, and I'm fortunate to be in the position of being the president. I've been president since 2012. This is our 11th annual convention that we're bringing forward. And of course, due to COVID, we've needed to have it online this year. When the variant reared its head, that basically shut it down to do physically. We were going to have a physical convention at Bobby Paia's farm here on Maui. And unfortunately, that didn't happen. So what do you do when you got a bunch of lemons? You make lemonade. And so thankfully, we really feel very happy about the lineup that we have leading up to convention and then to the convention itself. Katie, could you please put up the flyer for this year so folks can see all these presentations that we're going to be offering as we move forward here? And as Katie does that, I'll just ask everybody here tonight to let you know that as you see in your signing up, that we're not charging for this year's convention. Everything that we put forth, all this content that we put forth, there will be no fee, but we are asking for donations only. And donations in the spirit that you know that whatever you donate will go to assisting in the operations of our organization throughout the year. And we have such a dedicated, passionate group of individuals that lead this organization. I'm so fortunate to be in relationship with them. We're going to bring in all the chapter presidents to Maui for the convention itself from the December 9th through the 12th. And so we're filming some great presentations, great demonstrations on 6 of our farms here. And we're going to have them available in farm videos at the time of the convention. We're going to have mainland presentations in the morning. And then we're going to break for lunch. And then in the afternoon, early afternoon, we're going to have these farm presentations with a live Q&A with all our presidents in the same room. So that's going to be really exciting. And it's going to give people a chance to be interactive with us in this process. So I'm a family farmer, been farming for the past 27 years with my wife, Irene, and daughter, Kate Kahanulani, and our son, Kei Kai, who tragically passed away in 2019, but he's still a major part of our farm, and his spirit lives very strong within us and within our farm. So we have really wonderful, like I said, wonderful presentations lined up for the convention. As you can see, throughout the month of November, skipping Thanksgiving week, we have Mushroom Mondays, Hemp Tuesdays, and Soil Health Wednesdays. Same time every night. So this way you guys have that consistency to be able to tune in. And it's an hour-long presentation. If we run over an hour because there's more questions, or that's okay too, we'll run over an hour, and you folks are willing to stay on, we'll be here for you. December 9th, 10th, and 11th is our main presentation for the convention. And we're going to have Christopher Nesbitt out of Belize, Colombia, speak about his agroforestry systems. And then Dan Kittredge on Friday, the 10th, with the bionutrient meter that he's developed. And that's exciting because as a farmer, anyone that's farming out there, especially if you're using regenerative farming practices, you're putting all this time and energy into, growing the soil so you can grow the most nutrient-rich food possible. Well, Dan has been working on a meter to be able to test for that nutrient density. And right now, the meter that he has tests for bioflavonoids, antioxidants, and crop index. So he's going to be presenting on that. And this is on the path to having that meter one day that will be, when I hold up my cucumber and another farmer holds up his cucumber, we'll be able to test for nutrient density as opposed to just looking at it and wondering if it has the nutrient density to keep us well. So, and then on Saturday, Ray Archuleta from Kiss the Ground, the movie Kiss the Ground, will be presenting. And Ray, he's so great. A saying that rings in my head from Ray is when he says how, as farmers, we want to be emulating Earth's architecture. So it's a beautiful thing. He always gives a great presentation. So with that said, I want to just welcome you all. Thank you very much for being here tonight. And let's get on with the show here. The first presenter, and you know, there's a great way of being able to pivot in this pandemic. And the way I've done it is by going online and seeking out rock stars. And I found this rock star online, Hernan Castro, who's affectionately called the Paul Stamets of the Southwest. And his business is called Desert Alchemist. And he's in Arizona. And his videos are just off the hook, great educational pieces that he's given to the community through social media. And I feel so honored and blessed that we were able to have him here tonight. And so without further ado, please give your undivided attention to our guest tonight, Hernan Castro, Desert Alchemist. And then question and answer, you can post your questions in the chat. We'll work to get your questions and answered. And Hernan, aloha, brother. I like your mushroom hat, man.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll talk about this hat at some point during the presentation.
Great, looks great.
It's actually made out of mushrooms. And
yes.
Didn't know.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So take it away, my brother.
Do I have access?
Yes. You got your screen? Okay, share your screen.
Right. Well, I wanted to give you guys a little story about my life before I start this presentation. Yeah, my name is Hernan Castro. I have a company called Desert Alchemist that started back in 2017. If you read the bio, you probably heard most of this, but basically what had happened was my father suffered 3 strokes within the 6-month period. He sustained paralysis on half of his body. And doctors told me that if he kept having more strokes, he would possibly die or be severely paralyzed. So I was very concerned about this and started doing some research on how to help him recover better and faster. So I had prior experience growing mushrooms. So that helped me with the research that I discovered. So I did a lot of research on multiple ways to help people with brain damage, including like stem cell therapy. But I found some studies based on the lion's mane mushroom that were done in Japan and Korea and China. And so basically, based off this study, I was able to determine that some compounds in this mushroom are able to stimulate the brain to heal itself. And so long story short is I ordered a culture of the mushroom, grew it at my house, made an extract based off some formulas that I found in these studies. And I gave it to my dad, and he made a 99% recovery within 1 year. So that event kind of catapulted me into the mushroom world. I started falling in love with mushrooms, started studying all their medicinal properties. So today I'm gonna show you guys a presentation based off the medicinal properties of fungi. And I'm gonna touch on 5 or maybe I think it's 7 fungi in this presentation that are very important, but there's so many more mushrooms that I would love to share with you guys, but it's just so much information. But for now, we'll talk about these 7, and then in the future, we can talk about other ones. So this is what I do. I go out to the forest every summer when we get rains. Oh, somebody's audio's on. I think somebody needs to mute their mic.
Katie, can we mute EW, please? He's not muted.
Yes.
Thank you.
So anyways, yes. So every summer during the monsoons, I go out to the forest and I gather mushrooms. I learned about mushrooms basically from books and by joining an organization that had an event in Arizona back in 2017 called the North American Mycological Association. They helped me start learning about identification. It's basically a giant convention for mushroom scientists. And that was an incredible experience. So every state in the US has a mycological society. So if you want to learn about identification, learn more about mushrooms, I recommend looking one up and trying to join so that you can start learning. But yes, basically that's how I started, going out to the forest, finding mushrooms, and little by little started chipping away at it. And now I became very good at identifying most mushrooms in my area. So let's see. So this is my information in case you wanted to check out some of my videos. I do have a TikTok as well. And to see that, I think you can just go to Desert Alchemist on TikTok.
Yep, that's where I found you.
Mm-hmm. So I post videos every Friday, Fungus Friday. I post a video about a different mushroom and I talk about some of the characteristics. It's non-scripted, so it's basically, I'm telling you what I know myself and try to keep them short because TikTok basically wants you to keep the videos short. So if you want to learn, start learning that way, just check out the videos. Otherwise, let's get right into it. So for all of you people that don't know hardly anything about mushrooms or are not familiar with mushrooms at all, wanted to talk about mushrooms. So basically they're organisms, multicellular organisms that live underground and they grow one cell at a time, basically spread in a three-dimensional network. And they start growing underground and they are able to convert any organic and some inorganic compounds into sugars, and they can break down basically anything organic on the planet. So they're the recyclers of the world, and they're incredible organisms. So this is mycelium, for those that are not familiar with it. It looks like a little thread, like a spider web thread. And so each thread is called a hyphae, and they grow one cell at a time and they spread out. Once the hyphae makes a network, it's called the mycelium. Mycelium is the actual fruiting, or the actual organism that is known. It's actually the entity of the fungus. So the mushrooms that you see above the ground are just like the apple from a tree, and the tree is a mycelium. So when you see the mushrooms, you're just seeing like a reproductive organ, a fruiting body. And the mycelium lives underground. It works through chemical signals and digests wood or any kind of decaying matter, and acts like a breathing apparatus as well. So this is an image from Fantastic Fungi. This is what the mycelium looks like underground. And the next slide, I'm going to show you how these chemical signals work and how the mycelium can help the trees communicate with each other, and mycelium can communicate with each other. And it's basically acts like the internet of the forest. So this is a little clip from Fantastic Fungi. If you haven't seen the movie, highly recommend it. It's really cool. And they basically explain that the mycelium connects everything underground, all the trees, all the forests. It's virtually everywhere, even in deserts. And all plants are associated with some type of mycelium underground, some kind of fungal association. And like I said, the mycelium grows one cell at a time. It spreads, it starts growing into a network. When it's time to reproduce, they create a hyphal knot, and then it starts developing into a fruiting body, little primordia, which is like the first, it's basically like a baby fruiting body. Then it matures and then it grows, And when the mushroom opens up, it releases spores. The spores germinate and continue the cycle. And so what you see here on the left side is a puffball. And raindrops are falling on it and all these spores are flying out. These spores are eventually going to land somewhere that has the right humidity, the right temperature, and a new mushroom will start growing. And these spores are microscopic, so they're basically all over the air. And if you could imagine that the air we breathe is like the ocean, then mycelium is like the plankton, and it's everywhere, floating everywhere. So you're breathing it in all the time. So fungi were the first organism to come onto land. These numbers change all the time because we discover new fossils all the time, but basically estimated that 1.3 billion years ago, fungi came onto land and started breaking down some of the minerals in the rocks, creating soil. This helped the first plants that came out of the ocean to settle in the land and start growing. And every few years, we start finding mycelium, fossilized mycelium. And that's what this image is right here, is some of the mycelium that they found. But every year I hear of something new. So it's really incredible that mushrooms go so far back. They were basically opened the pathway for all life on Earth to begin. And so, like I mentioned before, the mycelium basically releases enzymes and oxalic acids, and they extract minerals from the rocks, and they convert it into CO2. They can convert carbon, anything that has carbon in it, into a fungal sugar. And all this process does is breaks down the rocks, creating soil, but then the mushrooms are able to basically squeeze their mycelium in tiny crevices in the rocks and breaks them open entirely and create soil. So it's a pretty cool process. And this is two of these ancient fungi that were found. I think this was in the 80s. They discovered the one on the right in Iraq, and they didn't know what it was for a long time. Then they started studying it and realized that it was a giant mushroom. So these are some of the earliest specimens of fungi that were growing on the planet, and they were called Prototax, basically a giant fungus. So imagine the Earth, 420 million years ago, looking like this. Plants are very small, and the mushrooms are towering over the Earth. And there's some creatures that are starting to come onto land. This is what we think the Earth looked like back then. So mushrooms are pretty cool. And they go a long ways. They live for a long time. So I wanted to share this image. This is an image of a giant fungus called Armillaria solidipes, or honey mushroom. And it's also known as the meadow maker because it kills trees and it spreads underground and basically has created this giant meadow that can only be seen from the sky. This is in Oregon, and this mushroom is one of the oldest living organisms on the planet. It's estimated to be about 2,500 to 3,000 years old. But the way they discovered is by testing DNA from mycelium on all the extremities, so all of the ends of the meadow, and they tested it, and the results showed that the mycelium was the same mycelium all around. So this organism has been living on the planet for a long time, and there's various places on Earth where mycelium like this grows. There's another one in Michigan that's about as big as the Mall of America, and it's also pretty old. But mycelium has been around for a long time, and it's incredible how long this organism can live. So mushrooms were revered for a long time, since ancient times. The Aztecs had this story about how the gods threw their seed upon the earth, and from that seed, mushrooms sprung. So they called mushrooms teonanacatl, and there's a psilocybin mushroom that is called teonanacatl, which basically means flesh of the gods. But mushrooms were very revered by the Mayans and the Aztecs, and they go a long way back. And in my company, I make tinctures, basically out of mushrooms and herbs. And tinctures also go a long way back. The Egyptians used to make them. So it's like basically an ancient way of making some sort of like remedy from the mushrooms. So I'm going to talk about certain chemical compositions of mushrooms. So some of the compounds that are found inside fungi, and try to cover some information on the cell wall. So if you didn't know, the cell wall of a mushroom is made out of chitin, which is like the second most abundant carbohydrate on the planet. It makes all insect shells, lobster shells, shrimp shells, even octopus have chitin on their suction pads. So this is a carbohydrate that we don't have enzymes for. So when we eat mushrooms, we basically cannot digest the mushroom tissue. It tastes really good, but if we're looking to extract medicinal properties or compounds from the mushroom, eating it doesn't do anything. It's kind of like eating fiber. So it's important to do an extraction, making some sort of tincture extract or powder extract. So it's because of the chitin that we cannot benefit from the mushrooms as well as we could if we had the enzyme. So we used to produce an enzyme called chitinase a long time ago, back when we lived in the mountains, and we used to eat insects in our early stages of evolution. But humans, for the most part, stopped producing chitinase, so we cannot digest the mushroom cell walls. And inside the cell wall is where all of the medicinal compounds are found. So another component of the mushroom cell wall is these fungal sugars. So they could be alpha glucans or beta glucans. And these sugars basically act as an immune system stimulator. So when you eat a fungus, these beta glucans will be released if the mushroom has been broken down. And when it goes into your system, your white blood cells basically detect it, and they say, oh, there's a fungus inside of the body, let's start looking for it. And they start looking for any kind of abnormality. And eventually they start finding cancer or other viruses or other organisms that are causing harm. So that's how the alpha glucans and beta glucans help stimulate the immune system. So that's one of the compounds inside of the mushroom. Another compound in the mushrooms are statins or statin-like compounds. Mushrooms have vitamins, minerals. They all have pretty much the same compounds inside, but some mushrooms produce more of a certain compound than another. So a mushroom like the portobello mushroom or the oyster mushroom that you can buy at the grocery store produces a lot of compounds that are statin-like, and they help lower cholesterol. So our first generations of statins were extracted from fungi. Lovastatin, which is a very famous medication, is basically a type of statin. It's been commercialized, and it came from the Aspergillus fungus. A lot of the fungus that make our medication are actually molds. So molds are called, any kind of fungus that doesn't make a fruiting body is called a fungi imperfecti. And then funguses that produce fruiting bodies are called fungi perfecti. So fungi imperfecti are where a lot of the medicine comes from or has come from in the past. But we're going to take a look at other mushrooms or funguses that make fruiting bodies that also have these compounds and are very medicinal as well. So sterol is basically like a steroid alcohol. It's found in the fruiting bodies of mushrooms, mycelium as well. And these sterols, basically what they do in the body is they inhibit cells from basically creating blood vessels. So this is really good for tumors, because tumors, cancer cells reproduce super fast, and the only way that they can reproduce is by creating blood vessels quickly. So these sterols can inhibit that and prevent them from getting bigger or speeding up their growth process. So a lot of the funguses that are promoted online or in videos are mushrooms that contain some of these sterols, and they can help with tumors, slowing down tumors or stopping them from growing entirely. But yeah, lion's mane mushrooms contain, actually most mushrooms contain ergosterol. If I think in the next couple slides, we might mention this a few times, because every single mushroom has ergosterol, but some have it more than others. The next compound that is found in mushrooms is a phenol. And phenols are compounds that are associated with antioxidant count. So the higher the phenolic count, the higher the antioxidant count in the mushroom. Here's a little chart of some of the edible mushrooms that have been tested for their phenolic content. But out of all the mushrooms that I've researched so far, I think chaga, which is this mushroom here in the picture, I think this one has one of the highest records of antioxidants on the planet. And it's definitely up in the top organisms on the planet with highest concentrations of antioxidants. I don't know what number it's on, but it's definitely up there, and it's an incredible mushroom. It's known as the king of medicinal mushrooms, and we'll talk about it more on the next few slides. So another compound that's found in mushrooms are terpenes, and terpenes are aromatic molecules that plants and mushrooms produce. They basically create an odor which can usually deter herbivores from eating the plants. In the case of mushrooms, it actually attracts certain mammals to eat the mushrooms. So terpenes are very important. Mushrooms contain monoterpenoids, diterpenoids, triterpenoids, sesquiterpenoids. A very famous diterpenoid comes from the lion's mane mushroom. There's two diterpenes in the lion's mane fungus. They're called herosinones and erinacines. And these diterpenoids were studied and were found to be the culprit behind the stimulation of the regeneration of the brain. So they're very important. I love these compounds. They're found in most of the mushrooms, and they're incredible. And they vary. Their function can vary from depending on their structure. So they could be antifungal, they can act as an antiviral, anti-cancer, anti-diabetic. It's remarkable how their properties can vary based on structures. So the other compounds found in funguses are indole compounds, and these are compounds like tryptophan, 5-HTP, serotonin, which can be found in certain funguses like the honey mushroom. They also contribute to neurological support, and can help. The honey mushroom tonic can actually have an anti-spasmodic effect for people that have spasms, and it's been used in China for a long time as a tonic for this. But other indole compounds like psilocin, psilocybin, and the compounds in ergot and yohimbine, these are all basically in the same group. They're indole compounds, and some of the plants that contain strychnine, like peyote, also have these compounds. So very interesting chemical composition inside of the mushrooms. So now we're going to talk about the 7 mushrooms that I decided to use in this presentation so that you guys can learn about some of the properties. So here's 5 different mushrooms up here. The Batulus species, Fomus fumentarius, which is Amadou, which is what my hat is made out of. Ganoderma planatum, Ganoderma resinaceum, which is a type of reishi, and then Trametes versicolor. That is turkey tail. These mushrooms contain some antiviral compounds, and so Paul Stamets did a study on the bees and this virus that affects their wings, how their wings develop, and basically reduces their lifespan and kills the bees fast. He was studying these mushrooms to see if any of these compounds in the mushrooms could help the bees. And this is a chart that shows some of the discoveries. So he discovered that these Amadou, which is the Fomus fumentarius, basically had some of the most powerful properties against this virus. So he's been using it a lot, feeding bees this sugar water made infused with an extract out of this fungus. So mushrooms are very powerful antivirals. And so we're gonna look at some of these, starting with Amadou. So this is what Amadou looks like. It grows on birch, almost exclusively on birch, but it does grow on some other trees. This mushroom is very ancient. This mushroom has been used for thousands of years, and some of the first uses that it had was that in the beginning, it was used to keep fires alive. So you could carve a hole inside of this fungus and keep embers burning, keep fires going. You can transport fire, which was very important for humanity in the beginning. And this kind of helped give rise to civilization. And because we were able to control fires. But this mushroom contains some of these antiviral compounds. It's a very powerful antiviral immune system modulator. It basically takes the betulinic acid from the birch tree and starts converting it into antiviral compounds. But this mushroom is pretty remarkable because when you cut it off from the tree and you boil it and process it in a special lye solution, its layers separate on the inside. So it delaminates and all of the layers of tissue come apart, and there's a special piece of tissue inside of this mushroom that is used to make a material that is very flammable. And that's what my hat is made of. If you got a chance to see my hat in the beginning, it's made out of this material. This material was used with some of the first weapons. So some of the prototype guns in the beginning used a wick made out of this material because it was highly flammable. And so this mushroom has really helped humanity for a long time, not only because of that, but because of its medicinal compounds. So there was also the story of the Iceman, which was basically a man that died in the Swiss Alps. He was frozen. Upon studying his remains, scientists discovered that he had a pouch on him. He had a mirror, he had a couple of tools, but in that pouch, he had one of these mushrooms, the Amadou mushrooms, and then he had another mushroom called the birch polypore, which is used to kill parasites. It's used as an antibiotic. And so this kind of helped Western scientists start looking into these mushrooms because they didn't think that they had any kind of medicinal compounds in them. But studying the Iceman helped us determine that this man was using the mushrooms to treat his wound because he had a wound from an arrow on the back of his shoulder. So he was trying to treat himself, and unfortunately he died. But thanks to him being preserved so well, we were able to make this discovery, which is pretty remarkable. And Going to the next mushroom. This is the red belted conch. The one that grows here in my area in Arizona is called Fomitopsis shranki. But there's a European ancestor called Fomitopsis pinicola. It grows in Europe. This mushroom can be found all over the world, or at least a species of this fungus can be found everywhere. It's basically in every forest. I've seen it everywhere I've gone. And a way to identify the mushroom is very easy. It has this red banding followed by an outer edge, which is yellow, white underside, and they grow directly on trees. They don't grow on the ground. It just grows right off the logs, living or dead trees. And these mushrooms can grow so fast sometimes that when they start growing off the tree, their bodies can't keep up with their accelerated growth, and they start sweating these medicinal compounds. So these mushrooms have a lot of triterpenes and beta-glucans and polysaccharides that stimulate the immune system. So this is a very important mushroom, not talked about a lot, because some of the most famous mushrooms that people always talk about are chaga, cordyceps, turkey tail reishi, and let me see. Yeah, I think, maitake is the other one. So those are the ones everybody talks about, but there are so many mushrooms out in the forest that have medicinal properties. And this is one of them. This is one of my favorites. I use this mushroom in my extracts. It's one of the bases along with reishi. And there's another mushroom called Felinus that is also found basically everywhere. That one is found in every type of plant. I've even seen it on cacti. But there's a lot of mushrooms. I think in another PowerPoint, I will talk about the rest of them, but there's basically an encyclopedia of fungi that have medicinal properties. And if you want to start learning about mushrooms and some of their compounds or some of their properties, I recommend buying this book called The Fungal Pharmacy. It's a very cool book. It's very thick, but it contains a lot of the studies that have been done on mushrooms based off of the International Journal of Medicinal Mushroom Research, which is a journal that you can find online. And it compiles all the studies that have been done worldwide on different fungi. So this mushroom, you can find it in every grocery store now. It wasn't very common before. Usually, you used to be able to only buy the portobello or the white button mushroom, but now oyster mushrooms have become very popular. These mushrooms can be found on dead logs or dead standing trees, and they grow every time there's a rain. It's one of the most hardy mushrooms out there, and they grow even when it's snowing, and they're delicious. It's an edible mushroom. These mushrooms contain a lot of vitamins and minerals, and some of these minerals are stimulated. So if you're trying to grow a mushroom like this, oyster mushrooms, which a lot of people are growing now, you can stimulate the mineral count and the vitamin count by exposing it to blue light. So raising blue light on this mushroom will cause it to make more minerals and vitamins. And it's a very cool mushroom. And some of its main properties are that it can act as a statin-like fungus. So it's got statin compounds inside of it. Consuming it or making an extract from this fungus will help you lower bad cholesterol and improve circulation. That's one of the main properties of this mushroom, but it's a pretty cool fungus. There's a lot of species of this mushroom. This is Pleurotus pulmonarius. This is the one that's native to my area. It's a pine-loving oyster mushroom. And just wanted to talk about it because it's a very common mushroom. I'm sure a lot of people that are in this group probably grow this or are growing it right now. And the next mushroom I wanted to talk about is the turkey tail. So this mushroom comes in a variety of colors and shades. It's very, very beautiful. And it's got this velvety top on top that's segmented and divided by different colors. And so it can resemble a turkey's tail when its tail is raised up and fanned out. This mushroom is one of the most famous medicinal mushrooms. It is a very notorious mushroom that has been researched for its properties with cancer. So a lot of cancer studies have been using this mushroom because it contains a famous fungal sugar called polysaccharide K. And polysaccharide K has been patented in some countries as a medication called Crestin. And Crestin basically boosts immune-based function within a matter of 2 to 4 weeks. It can raise your immune system. And when you're undergoing chemotherapy or radiation, your immune system gets depleted, or if you have an immune system related illness, this mushroom can actually stimulate your immune system to boost and will help you fight off any pathogens. It also can help you fight off viruses and overcome cancer better. It gives you like a better, basically a better chance at fighting it off. So it's a very, very popular mushroom. You probably heard Paul Stamets talking about using this mushroom with his mother who had breast cancer. And a lot of the studies that have been done on this mushroom have been based off breast cancer. So it's a very cool mushroom. This one also grows everywhere. When I first started learning about mushrooms and studying them in these books, I always thought that these mushrooms would only grow in the Pacific Northwest, or they would only grow in Japan or China, where these studies came from. But after I started learning about foraging, I went out to the mountains that were here close to me, and I found that these mushrooms were growing here as well. So all of these pictures are from mushrooms that I found myself. And I've gone to many mountain ranges all over the country, and you can find these mushrooms basically everywhere. So I suspect that they're in every continent of the world. So it's a very cool mushroom. And they're not very big, but if you harvest enough of them, you can make a tea and keep your immune system strong with the compounds that are found in them. So the next mushroom I'm going to talk about is reishi. And this is reishi that I found here in the mountains where I live in Mount Lemon. This mushroom has been studied for approximately 10,000 years, according to the Chinese. This is known as the mushroom of immortality. These mushrooms grow and turn into a fan. So when the mushrooms finish growing, it'll grow in this fan shape, and it'll turn dark red, and it kind of resembles a liver. And this mushroom is the first mushroom that was used by the Chinese. The emperors used to basically harvest these mushrooms and make tea. There were a couple of emperors that were trying to become immortal, and they claimed that this mushroom would help them compose or create an elixir of life. And they claimed that this was one of the main ingredients that would help them make the elixir of life, or elixir of immortality. This mushroom has a lot of research behind it, and this fungus contains some of the highest levels of statins, like the oyster mushroom, and it contains a lot of beta glucan. So this, out of all the mushrooms, this mushroom contains a very high level of beta and alpha glucans. So if you take this mushroom, the alpha glucans will help regulate your immune system, keep it from going overactive or underactive, so that if you have a really high immune system that's attacking your body, this will help regulate it so that it doesn't attack it, and keep it in balance so that it doesn't go too low as well. But this mushroom also contains a lot of triterpenes and diterpenoids, and it is known as the queen of medicinal mushrooms. So this is a very cool fungus. If you look it up online, you'll find a lot of extracts made out of this fungus. And I make some myself on my website if you guys are interested in checking it out. But this mushroom also grows all over the world. I found it everywhere. Some of my friends have sent me pictures from Costa Rica and other countries, and it seems like it grows everywhere. They're not all the same species, but all of the species of Ganoderma have very similar properties. So it's like basically getting lavender from different parts of the world. They're different species, but their properties are very similar. So reishi, no matter where you get it from, if you happen to run upon it and you decide to make a tea, it's a very good mushroom to harvest. And I think it'll be very helpful with people that have compromised immune systems. So this is lion's mane. In case you guys are not familiar with lion's mane, this is a mushroom that helped my father with the regeneration of the brain damage that he had sustained. Lion's mane contains those two famous diterpenoids that I mentioned. It contains the herocenones and erinacines, which are named after its scientific name. Lion's mane basically grows on trees or logs, and its mycelium starts creating these icicles, these long icicles that look like hairs, makes it look like a pom-pom, and it smells like a coconut, it smells like coconut oil, but it's supposed to taste like lobster. It's an edible mushroom, but the compounds in the fungus, the most notable compounds are those two diterpenoids, and when you eat the extract made out of this fungus, the extract has these diterpenoids that stimulate your brain to make a protein called it's called nerve growth factor. And the nerve growth factor proteins start helping the brain create new tissue and regenerate damaged tissue. This mushroom on the right is one that a friend of mine found in Mount Lemon, and the one on the left is one that I grow. So if you go out to the mountains, I don't know what Hawaii is like. I've never been out there, but I would love to come foraging with you guys sometime. And if we find any mushroom in the wild, you can actually take some tissue from this fungus and any fungus, bring it back to your lab, put it on a petri dish, and the mycelium will grow, and you can actually grow these at home and many other funguses. So it's a very cool mushroom. I think this mushroom grows in Hawaii, but I'm not sure.
It's a date, man. We'll make it happen when you come.
All right, let's do it. This one, unfortunately, does not grow where I live, or definitely doesn't grow in Hawaii. This is chaga. This is known as the king of medicinal mushrooms. Exclusively grows on birch. And this mushroom, because it only grows on birch, it can only be found on the northern hemisphere or northern parts of the United States, close to the 45th parallel, where all the birch trees grow. And this mushroom basically takes compounds in the birch tree, converts them into a lot of antioxidants. So this mushroom has like one of the biggest records of antioxidant counts out of all the mushrooms that have been researched so far. And the structure of this fungus has a lot of melanin. So it's very dark because it contains really, really high levels of melanin. And inside of the fungus, it also produces a lot of antiviral properties, a lot of antiviral compounds. So this is one of the go-tos when people are sick. They go out to the forest, they grab some chaga, break it up, make it into a coffee or a tea, and helps them get over flus and viruses. And it's a very popular mushroom. I think this is one of the most famous ones, actually. And there's a lot of books that talk about this fungus. But there's another fungus that I like a lot, and I didn't put it on this presentation because I didn't want to overwhelm you guys with too much information, but it's called the willow diamond fungus. And this fungus has been used by Native Americans here in the United States as a remedy for flus. And it's very, very popular. The people that use it swear by it, and it's very expensive. And so when people find it in the wild, They take it home, they drink a tea made from this fungus, and helps reduce the flu symptoms very, very quickly. Very powerful mushroom. Chaga is very similar to this fungus. So that's why I put it on here, because it's more popular, but it's very, very powerful antiviral, and also contains some compounds like the other funguses, the triterpenoids, has a very high content of these. And so it's a very, very popular fungus. And so this fungus here is known as Agaricon, and it's actually related to the red-belted polypore that we mentioned a few slides ago. They're in the same genus. This mushroom used to grow in Europe, but it's believed to be extinct over there now. This fungus has some of the strongest antiviral compounds on the planet. They're called fomitopsterols, and they are antiviral, antibacterial compounds that have been studied. And in these studies, it has shown that even when when this extract has been diluted in 100-to-1 dilution, basically 100 times water to 1 portion of the fungus extract, it's still more powerful than some of the medication that is out there, some of the antiviral medication that you can get at a pharmacy. Unfortunately, this mushroom right now only grows in the Pacific Northwest, here in the Americas. It does grow in other parts of the world. You can find it in Russia, and it's very, very expensive, and it takes many years to grow. Chaga takes about 20 years to grow a nice, decent sized fruiting body. This mushroom takes even longer. This mushroom can grow probably for hundreds of years. And you can see each ring on this fungus represents an era that it's been growing. And they grow on the canopies of Douglas firs. So it grows on the canopy of the forest, and you have to climb up pretty high to get them, but they get really massive. So if I ever get a chance to do a presentation on one of these, I'll show it on the Zoom, but they're pretty big. They're about as big as my chest, or a person's chest. They're super huge, but you only need a little bit of tissue. And because this mushroom is so popular, a lot of people have been harvesting it, and it's in danger of going extinct, much like the chaga, because these mushrooms take so long to grow. We can't grow them fast enough, and they cannot be grown in a lab. Only the mycelium can be grown in a lab. So over harvesting of these funguses is bringing it close to extinction. So I think Paul Stamets is collecting a lot of specimens from this fungus and saving it in a library so that it can be reintroduced to the forest. But this is a remarkable mushroom. It was used by the Greeks as well, and it was used to treat tuberculosis. Back in the day when the classic or the ancient Greeks were around, they used this mushroom. This was found in one of the journals of medicine written by Dioscorides, and it was described as a mushroom it's described as the elixir of long life. That's what they described this mushroom as, and it has been used medicinally for a long time. This mushroom is one of my favorites, so I decided to include it in this list. And one of the other really popular mushrooms that is out here is Cordyceps. Cordyceps is a small orange fungus. The genus contains many different colors and many different species of Cordyceps mushrooms. Cordyceps mushrooms are known as entomopathogenic fungi, which basically means that they're mushrooms that attack insects. So I think the insect that this one is growing on, can't really tell what it is. It could probably be a grasshopper. So these mushrooms basically release spores that will land on an insect, and the spore will fuse into the chitin of the cell wall of the insect, and it'll start germinating inside, eventually turning it into a mummy and controlling some of the chemicals that are produced in the insect's nervous system. It makes them act very strange. It'll make an ant basically crawl on top of a plant that is hanging right over its nest, and it'll cause it to clamp down on a branch and die there. And then a fungus will grow out of its joints and release spores on the anthill and contaminate the rest of the ants and basically eats them all. So it's a very strange fungus, but this is another fungus that has been used for a long time in China. So a lot of these mushrooms that I'm mentioning are used in traditional Chinese medicine. And this mushroom was another one of these key ingredients that was used by the Chinese emperors to make the elixir of life. And this Cordyceps contains a compound called cordycepin, which affects cancer cells. It disrupts their growth. It contains other compounds that help the body make more red blood cells and helps the red blood cells carry more oxygen. So in turn, this helps the body basically produce more energy. So it helps people build stamina. Also works as an aphrodisiac. But the mushroom that the Chinese commonly refer to is called Cordyceps sinensis. And that's the one that grows on a silkworm. And I don't have a picture of the silkworm here, but basically the silkworm mushroom that they were using in China turned out to have high levels of cyanide. So they stopped using it and they switched over to this orange version, which is called Cordyceps militaris. And this is one of the commercial strains that you find out in the markets on the internet. I've grown this mushroom myself. It's kind of an advanced mushroom to grow, but if you guys would like to, in the future, I can do a workshop, teach you guys how to grow this fungus. But I don't know what the implications of growing this in Hawaii would be. I don't want this mushroom to get out and start killing the insects. I think we would have to run it by forest services in Hawaii if we ever did this, because these mushrooms, if they're not native, they can be devastating to the ecosystem. So we can talk about that in another time if you guys are interested, but I can teach you how to grow this in your house without using insects.
Hernan, so we are at 1 hour here. Would you want to begin to wrap up, and then we could open up to question and answers?
Yeah. The PowerPoint's pretty much over. I just wanted to show you guys a list of some of the funguses that are used for cancer. If you're interested, you can look some of these up. In the next slide, I have a list of mushrooms that have high antiviral compounds. You can also find these online. If you can't find them, you can always message me if you're interested in something like that. I have cultures as well. I can teach you guys how to grow and sell you cultures or mail you some cultures. And if you guys are ever in Arizona, or if you're from Arizona, you can always join one of my meetup classes where I take people foraging. We all get to study mushrooms hands-on. You get to see them, smell them. I do a cooking demonstration, do other chemical demonstrations on the fungus by cutting them. And it's basically a very fun way to start learning how to identify mushrooms and learn about some of their properties. So that's basically my presentation. I would like to take questions if anybody's got any.
Oh, that was just amazing, Hernan. That was just amazing. Thank you so much. There's a question up here that says, how do you distinguish turkey tail from false turkey tail?
So there, I don't have a picture of the false turkey tail, but turkey tail, the false turkey tail basically looks very similar to the one on the bottom left. And it has banding and it has some color, but the colors are very dull. They're not colorful like the turkey tails on the right. They're usually different shades of gray or brown. And when you look at the underside, the false turkey tail is either completely smooth or it's violet. And turkey tail on the underside has visible pores. So you can see a lot of pores on the underside, and they're usually white or cream colored.
Oh, okay, so that's great. And then when you harvest it, like for instance, when you're harvesting turkey tail, are you harvesting right at the base of the mushroom there to where would it grow back again at that
Yeah.
spot?
So turkey tail is one of like the hardiest mushrooms out there. All it needs is a log and water. You give it a log and water, it will grow every year, anytime you water it. So if you take all of these mushrooms off the log, as long as it gets some rain next year, the mycelium will come back to life and will grow new fruiting bodies. So you can harvest it from the base. If it's fresh enough, you can just peel it off. But if it's getting dry, you'll have to carve it off with a knife. This is a cool thing about mushrooms is I discovered that even when it's completely dried out and has been dried for years, I can bring mycelium back to life. And even if it's cryogenically frozen, I can bring it back to life. Mycelium is very powerful. I was worried that if there was a giant or a huge fire or a drought that basically caused the forest to start drying out, I thought that this would affect mushrooms, but it turns out that mycelium somehow can go dormant and come back to life. It's very incredible.
Well, with all those wildfires that are occurring on the Pacific Northwest, or actually in California, I wonder when they come back, what's going to flourish as far as mycelial network.
Well, mostly what will flourish is mushrooms like the ones in this basket. So the cauliflower fungus, these porcinis, the boletes, any kind of mushroom that grows underground will probably come back, no problem. But mushrooms that grow on trees like the red-belted polypore, chaga, or agaricon, if the tree dies, they die, so they won't come back. So that's very sad to hear that they're still having all these fires, especially in that area where agaricon grows and where it should be protected.
Right, the old growth forest. And is there any other questions? Anybody else have any questions you want to put in the chat? I was really interested in, you're talking about, we started a conversation about making the extracts from the fruiting bodies as opposed to mycelium. Could you talk a little bit about that, please?
Yes. So
want to take down your PowerPoint, this way we can see you.
Stop share. Okay.
Great. There we are.
So the mycelium is very thin, like I mentioned in the PowerPoint. It grows one cell at a time, one cell thick. So it's not very dense. And when companies or people are making extracts out of the mycelium, what they're doing is they're taking a bag of sterilized grain, such as brown rice. They inject a little bit of mycelium into the bag, and the mycelium will colonize the entire bag eventually. And if it's a fruiting body type of fungus, it'll grow a fruiting body if you cut a hole in the bag. But a lot of companies, what they're doing is they're just taking the rice, they're dehydrating it and grinding it up and then selling it into and putting it in capsules and selling it as powder, which not only doesn't work as efficiently as an extract, but also has a lot of filler. So all of that rice, it does have some mycelium in it, but it's mostly all filler. It's mostly grain. So you're basically making a rice extract with a little bit of mycelium from the fungus. So it's not the most beneficial way to make an extract out of a fungus to get the medicinal properties. There is a way to grow mycelium in a manner that is known as the liquid fermentation process. It's basically growing mycelium in a liquid media. And that actually makes the mycelium grow a SCOBY that can get really thick and produces medicinal compounds. And that's the only other way that I know that is comparable to using actual mushrooms. But using mushrooms is probably the best way to get your medicine out of fungi or medicinal compounds. And getting mushrooms from the wild is even better, because the mushrooms that are in the wild are fighting temperature change, they're fighting viruses, they're fighting bacteria, they're fighting animals, they're fighting other funguses. And so they produce all of these metabolites that kill these organisms or these pathogens. And because we are so closely related to mushrooms, we can benefit from these compounds, because mushrooms are actually more closely related to us than plants are. So anything that affects them can affect us. If we take a strong antifungal, it can damage our kidneys and can possibly kill us.
Wow.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, that's not good. Not my idea of a good day. Let's see, is there a way to get Agaricon spores in an effort to repopulate it?
Yes, there is. What you would have to do
That's
is
got to be repopulated on a living tree, right? It's got to be repopulated on a living tree.
Yes, it has to grow on Douglas fir.
Douglas.
I was talking to Forest Services here in Arizona to see if they would be okay with me introducing an Agaricon to some of the forests that we have here, to see if it'll grow, just in case it does go extinct, and or these fires basically kill all the Agaricon in the Northwest. Basically trying to get them to see if they would be interested in introducing it, so that we can continue some of the genetic cultures of this fungus out here and keep it alive so that it doesn't go extinct, because it's a very important fungus.
Do you see this question in the chat about what's the best way to imbibe fungus as medicine?
Wait, where is this?
In Quayam.
Let's see the chat.
Let's see, when you harvest wild mushrooms, what does one do to create medicine when we bring them home?
Okay, so what you want to do is take the mushroom and break it up, dry it, and make a powder out of it. And you can make a tea out of this powder, or you can make a tincture, or you can make an extract. And the difference between all three of this is the tea is just basically a water decoction. The extract is a process that is, the tincture is a process where you take the mushroom powder, soak it in alcohol, put it in a machine that stirs it constantly so that it's being agitated, and can stimulate the alcohol to pull out some of the compounds out of the cell walls. And the extract is a combination of the water and the alcohol. And it could be a triple extraction. You can use glycerin as well. It doesn't work as well as alcohol. But basically, you can make depending on the mushroom and whatever compound you're trying to get out of it, you can either make the tea, the extract, or the tincture. In the case of lion's mane, you don't really need to make the water portion of it, because of the diterpenoids that are found in the fungus are not water soluble. So they can only be pulled out with oils or very strong alcohols. So just depends on the mushroom. So do a little bit of research, and you can look up some formulas online. And there's a lot of like herbalist formulas that will teach you how to make an extract or a tincture.
Wonderful. And then there's, let's see, when we consume mushrooms in powder form, are we getting the most out of the extraction, or would tincture be more effective? I think you pretty much answered that.
It depends on if the mushroom or if the powder is an extract powder, which would be bioavailable instantly when you ate it. This means that they basically have taken the cells of the fungus and broke them open and pulled out the medicine and converted it into a powder extract. That would be very beneficial. If you're just using ground up mushrooms, you will get some of the benefits from the mushroom, but it would be very minimal, probably 10% or less. The rest of the fungus tissue will just go right through you like fiber.
Interesting. So one question was in Korean natural farming, we practice that a lot here. I know personally, I make all the preparations. The IMO, the indigenous microorganisms, cotton candy fungi has been identified as Aspergillus onzae. Noticed you mentioned in an earlier presentation. You care to comment?
I'm not familiar with that one. What does it look like?
It's grown on white rice. What we do is we harvest the mycelium. Yes.
I think I just saw some of the studies on this fungus. They grow on rice. It doesn't really make a fruiting body, right? It just makes mycelium.
Yeah, it makes a mycelium, and then it likes to grow. We've been using meal run of wheat, and we tested the meal run of wheat, and it's mainly loaded with biostimulants, all the trace elements that the study found on it, the test found on it. So that's why in culturing it on the rice and then applying it to the mill run of wheat, it just explodes. It just covers the mill run, and then we take that. It's called IMO3, and we mix that with soil, and for a week to create IMO4, which is an amazing amendment you could just use right around your plants, and the plants love it. And then the IMO3, we take that, or IMO2, which is basically the mycelium that's grown on the rice, mixed equal amounts with brown sugar. We take that, it's like a marmalade, it looks like when it's done, and we put that in water and we spray it onto the plants, and they love that too, along with other preparations like Oriental herbal nutrient and fermented plant juice and stuff. But the point being that there's people that are on this call right now that practice KNF, and it's very popular in a lot of our producers here to limit the amount of outside inputs that we bring in. So
yeah, it's a very popular one. I've noticed that it's increasing and in popularity, and I've seen a lot of posts and videos about companies using it and are growing it. So it's not a mushroom that is used for consumption, right?
Oh no, it's mainly the mycelium you find underneath the forest floor. It's really a lot. You find it a lot in bamboo. After you have good amount of rainwater that has soaked the area. If you go underneath the leaf litter, the mycelium grows all in there, and you take that and culture it onto white rice that is cooked with half the amount of water. So it still has a lot of air going through it, so the mycelium can go through it easily. But
have you tried using barley? Because that's
no, I haven't. No, I haven't used barley. Yeah, that would be a great idea to try it with barley. Yeah,
barley has more nutrients that the fungus can use and can probably nourish it better, help it make some of these compounds that you're looking for.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, give that a try. I know it's late for you there, though. I did want to ask if you could type into the chat your website for folks to be able to see what you're producing, and it's available to them in your extracts. I'm really amazed at the body of work that you've put in since 2017. Like I said, you're very well visible on social media, and Instagram and TikTok under Desert Alchemist. Drake Weinert is one of our chapter presidents. He's going to be presenting on Korean natural farming. Let me see. It's on the schedule. I'm not exactly sure what. I think he's on the second presentation for soil health for our Wednesday nights. But I wanted to encourage everybody to check out your website. Next week on this time we have Irene from Russia. And so she's an amazing mushroom artist. And then Charles Tresteter, our mycologist here on Maui, and Mark McDowell, a chef here on Maui at 62 Market. We're going to go up to Charles's place, and Charles has already got his bags growing for lion's mane and shiitake and oyster to have Chef Mark harvest. and cook right there next Monday night. So I'll be there with them guys, and then we'll have Irene on from Russia sharing. So I wanted to put art, cooking, producing of mushrooms, and cooking of mushrooms all together in one presentation. So we're really excited about what that'll provide. And thank you so much, man. I really appreciate you agreeing to do this and being on tonight. This is the start of a wonderful friendship and relationship we'll have with you. And we got to get you to Hawaii. We're hoping to have our annual convention physically here in Hawaii next year. So we'll kind of lobby you right now to come and present there. That would be really well received, I'm sure.
I noticed that you're having a mushroom, local Hawaiian mushroom class. I saw it on.
Yes. Ben from Malama Mushrooms will be the last mushroom presentation on the our last Monday of November, on the 29th. And so if Katie could put the schedule back up to show everybody, that'd be great. We had so far on Eventbrite over 190 people have registered for all the different presentations, some certain ones, but pretty much a really good cross section of people are interested in all our presentations. Tomorrow night, we Katie, do you have that schedule? You're posting that now. Thank you very much. Let me see what we got here. I should have it right in front of me, but I don't, unfortunately. Katie Zuber's our communications chair, and she's working to get that up right now. And some technical issues, I think, with it. I'm not sure.
Oh, is it? Oh, sorry, I'm screen sharing. Is it not showing?
Oh, no, it's not showing. Yeah.
Oh, it's very odd. I'm screen sharing the schedule.
Huh.
I'm sorry. I don't know why it's not working.
Oh, here it is. I'll put it up. Here it is. How's that? Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Mushroom panel.
Okay, so tomorrow night is the hemp panel with the Lizzie Knight, and that's going to be wonderful. Lizzie's out of Colorado Hemp and Beyond CBD. And then Wednesday night will be Bob Schaefer, our own agronomist here in Hawaii, the nature and health of farming soils in Hawaii. And then, like I said, next Monday will be Charles Tresteter, Irene Antonetts, and Chef Mark McDowell on our mushroom panel. That'll be very provocative too. Mm-hmm. And then Tuesday night will be Gail Baber out of Kohala on Big Island, Hawaii Hemp Economics and Rules, which are ever changing here in Hawaii. So if you're interested in growing hemp or you want to know what the rules are, Gail's all about it and all over it. And then Drake Weinart is Wednesday night on Korean Natural Farming, the 17th. And then we skip Thanksgiving week. And then Ben Lillybridge will be of Malama Mushroom, the Final Frontier and the Mushrooms of Hawaii. So that'll be really interesting. Ben's a bright light like Hernan is, and really excited about all the mushroom presentations we're having. And then following Doug Fine, organic cowboy out of New Mexico. And Doug's a brother of a different mother, and he's going to talk about regenerative hemp farming, which he actually does. And he's a world-class author, and he'll be on the 30th. And then Cab Baber, Gail's husband, who is a hemp farmer on the Big Island and very much an advocate for bokashi and soil management. So that'll be wrapping up our presentations over the month of November. And then again, we get back together again on December 9th. All our presidents will be here from from all of our chapters. They'll be here on Maui. And we're going to have mainland presentations with Christopher Nesbitt, Agroforestry Systems out of Belize, Colombia, Dan Kittredge, a bionutrient produce meter, and then Ray Archuleta, Kiss the Ground. There'll be morning presentations on the 9th, 10th, and 11th. We'll stop for lunch, and then in the afternoon, we're going to have these farms that we're now shooting videos for, and I'll have edited that basically will speak to demonstrations that are going to be shown on these farms, and also how these farms become resilient and regenerative farms that feed nutrients back into their farms so they limit the amount of outside input. So they're going to be very provocative and thought-provoking presentations that we're working on to have ready in time for that. And please, if the spirit moves you to donate to the organization, please do, because it really helps broaden our outreach and bring this in-depth knowledge that all these people that we have here in Hawaii are imparting upon us with their expertise and experience. And so thank you so much for being on tonight. We ran a little over, but we'll allow that to happen with each presentation, given the questions that are needed, and then just sharing with you any of our upcoming outreach. So thanks again, everybody. Stay positive, test negative. Hernan, thank you, my brother. Really appreciate you. You take good care of yourself, okay?
You guys too. Likewise.
We'll be in touch. Warmest aloha, brother. Aloha.
Aloha.